We are talking firearms this hour of the program. It's 6 minutes after 9 o'clock. We're at 21. I remember some months ago thinking to myself, I wonder if we're going to run out of things to talk about when it comes to this program. And then every week the list starts growing longer and longer and longer of things related to firearms, to the Second Amendment, and to training. And I'd like to thank Charlie Howell, who was on the air with us the last couple of weeks. He sent me a letter from a newspaper, apparently in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and from a writer who, well, this guy does not like people who conceal carry. But I want to point out that we just keep coming up with material here, and the issue just keeps growing and growing and growing. We want to welcome Todd Eccles from Patriot Defense.
It's good to be here.
And Forrest Anderson from Washington Street Pawn.
What's up?
One of my coworkers was going to be dropping by to look at your $200 wall, so
it's still going. I've sold a lot off the wall, but then we had a lot of stuff. We've had a lot of people sell us stuff for the holidays, so the walls is staying strong.
We need another picture of the wall.
There's lots of 200 and under stuff on
the wall. Another Facebook photo.
All right.
Got to inspect it.
It's morphing.
This guy writes a letter to this newspaper. And again, I say it's Virginia, where I remember I used to make runs to a dog rescue in Virginia, not far from Richmond. And if you get into southern Virginia and the very western part of the state, they're very traditional. If you're up around Washington, D.C., they're all newcomers, and they're all, for gun control. I don't know where this guy is from, but he writes this letter in paragraph 2. He's upset that people, he said, I'll give you a couple of things he says here. Why carry concealed with a question mark? I would have thought that one reason to carry openly would be to deter mischief. Who, if they saw the weapon, they might decide to not to misbehave. He says, this letter is not against your right to carry a gun for your own protection. It is about my right to know you have it for my protection. And then he goes on to say that if he's at Starbucks and you have a gun, he's going to leave because he said, I can go do other things and that way you won't kill me.
Maybe we'll help him overcome his caffeine addiction.
You could throw a hot Frappuccino in someone's face and stab them, for that matter. I mean,
the odds of him dying in a car accident between Starbucks and wherever else he's going to go are greater than him getting shot.
He's just an uneducated, what they call hoplophobe, where he's got this phobia of guns, and he doesn't really want anyone to have them concealed or open. That's what it boils down to.
Yeah.
He wants his fear to infringe on my right. That's not the way it works.
Well, I'm looking at this, and I thought about the photograph that was going around the internet this past week. It was a joke, but a guy was sitting at a coffee counter somewhere having his breakfast, and you could see he was carrying. And the writer says, a friend of mine said that, doesn't this disturb you? And I said, yes, he's wearing a pair of tan Dockers with blue socks. But I've seen people, a lot of places, even if they're concealed, sometimes you can tell. And I never once have been threatened by that. My feeling is, gosh, I'm glad somebody's sitting here in case a nut walks in who might be able to take care of the nut before the nut gets to me.
You can typically tell you hang out with people, you're around people, and sometimes people just give off that vibe. And whether it be the way they look or the way you feel about it. I mean, the average person who carries concealed is not going to snap and go off. I mean, they've already had to pass back some background checks to get their permit and purchase their firearm and whatnot. Concealed is the best way to carry. Concealed gives you options. It gives you options on whether to protect your family or get involved into a situation. People that carry, carrying open, sometimes it draws a lot of undue attention. So it could actually incite more violence. Someone came into that coffee shop with a firearm. They were going to rob the place and look over. Maybe they weren't going to fire their gun. Maybe there's someone there open carrying. It could actually cause that person to turn and fire on other people.
The other way to look at that, too, is there's some people who have legitimate fear of guns, who've maybe had a traumatic experience. There's a lot of veterans I've dealt with who, they said, look, the last gun I'll ever carry was in the military. They've been through some experiences where the comfortable firearms don't make them comfortable. And it's more than just the anti-gun hype. They've actually had experiences. Mm-hmm. So it's also kind of a courtesy thing to them to, you don't want to base your rights what makes other people comfortable, but there's some people who legitimately are uncomfortable
If
in the
you,
presence of
but
guns.
if they are uncomfortable in the presence of guns, shouldn't it ease their minds a little bit to maybe have one concealed? Someone has one concealed so they
And
don't see them, and
that's
they
exactly what
don't.
I'm saying.
Yeah, they don't get nervous.
Yeah, so then they never have to worry about it, never cross their mind. Gun owners, their rights are protected mostly by their actions.
Right.
If they act appropriately and they're not knuckleheads and they don't do stupid things with their guns, their rights are pretty well assured. However, if they're irresponsible and they accidentally shoot someone, they drop their gun on the middle of a floor in the middle of a crowded restaurant or establishment, then yeah, that's going to be bad for them.
Well,
Then it's going to be bad for all gun owners.
How many times has there been a mass shooter that started off as a concealed carry holder? He walked in, he was concealing the fire. They're going to walk in with the rifles drawn. They're going to walk in with their handguns drawn. It's the way it's going to be. I mean, some guy sitting in the middle of a movie theater didn't all of a sudden have a concealed, carry weapon with him. Didn't all of a sudden stand up and pull it out. Those are the guys that blaze in the back door with shotguns. They got body armor on and everything like that. So, it's not going to doesn't matter.
This guy, though, there was one thing he did say. He says, I have no reason to presume that you are responsible, reasonable, appropriately trained, despite your certificate, which I have no reason to trust. Now, we bring this up before, and I've heard it from Doug Sugden at the Sheriff's Department here in Twin Falls as well. Just because you fire off 98 rounds and you get the certificate, you still have to continue to maintain some training and follow safety procedures.
Exactly, and that's what I tell everyone in my classes. Don't let this class be the only time you fire your gun in the next, month, 2 months, 6 months, or ever. You're depending on this thing to protect yourself and your loved ones. You need to go out and you need to train with it. You need to practice with it. You need to shoot with it. You need to develop the skills, become proficient with it. And I know Forrest will back me up 100% on this.
That's the biggest thing we tell everyone is, when we sell them a gun, we're like, do you know how, go. There's a difference between knowing how to manipulate the trigger in a way that the gun will go bang and actually knowing how to use that firearm. And that comes from getting the proper fundamentals, learning from someone that can teach you the proper way to shoot. Just because grandpa shot a certain way, I see tons of people say, my grandpa taught me to shoot, and their form is horrible.
Yep.
So go take a class, learn the proper way to shoot, and then go practice. So those things become second nature, because in a high stress, self-defense situation, it's going to be all muscle memory.
You don't have time to think about it.
I got to mention the part of your course that you go through, Todd, with the various stances and the like. Those are things people also have to practice as well. It's not just firing and trying to hit the target, but it's how you just mentioned. Sometimes Granddad taught you a way that might have worked for him, but it's not generally going to work for most other people.
Right. Yeah. We go over the stances. We learn how to shoot the trigger, gun manipulation, the stances, how to line up your sights, how to not use your sights in certain situations. Quick sight target acquisition, all that stuff we go over. And you need to know it all. You have to crawl before you can walk and walk before you can run.
You got to clean the firearm too. And I'll tell you a little story. When I come back from sometimes a little target practice, I have a black and white furry thing that likes to smell and just kind of like run its nose all over anything I brought back, because that residue,
Right.
There's an odor, and it attracts, the curiosity. So you've got to make sure that everything is in working order too. This guy riding is concerned, I think, even about misfires and those types of things happening. So, there's a huge responsibility. If you follow it, then he shouldn't have any worries.
Right. And that guy in that article, don't be fooled. He doesn't even want you to carry a firearm openly. He doesn't want you to carry a firearm at all. Even though he's going the open path, he doesn't even want that.
He doesn't want you to own a gun, period.
Yeah.
We have another caller, or a caller, I should say. We've had other callers earlier in the program, but a caller joining us in this segment. It's 9:15, and you're on KLIX. Caller, go ahead.
Yeah, there was a case in Haley a couple of years ago you guys probably heard about. There was a shooting at a mini-mart north of Haley. Guy pulled a knife, the other guy pulled a gun, shot him, and was immediately arrested. Lots of witnesses. Spent 11 months in jail. Huge bond. Couldn't get out. Right before the trial, they dropped the bond. Took the jury 15 minutes to turn this guy loose. And Blaine County immediately come back with a new ordinance. No shooting within 1,000 yards of any residence in Blaine County. Now, that's still on the books. is it the Attorney General's job to sue Blaine County and get that removed?
I wouldn't know. I mean, I would think someone would need to protest that legally. Second of all, that doesn't inhibit your right to defend yourself.
Well, yeah, and the second Idaho Second Amendment Alliance was going around to a lot of these little towns and stuff. I don't know if they dealt with anything up there, but their big push for a while, and I think still is, it's still there. It's not the forefront, but it's still there. Is they were going to these little towns, like for example, I believe Buell was one, and they would say you could get the Buell had a statement or something that said you weren't allowed to shoot a firearm in town, but it didn't give you the okay to do it in self defense. And so they were going to Buell and some of these other little towns trying to get them to change their wording because they were trying to preempt the state. And so that's probably it. They probably need to look into that if they haven't already and petition to get that changed.
The caller did say that the fellow who defended himself spent 11 months behind bars, but at least he wasn't underground.
Exactly. He tried by 12 instead of carried by 6.
Caller, are you still with us? No, the caller, I was going to ask him another question as a follow-up on that. Just a reminder, telephone number if you have a question or comment for us this morning, 208-736-0300. What we'll do, we've got a couple of minutes before the break. What we'll do is we'll get some contact information for the two of you.
Forrest at Washington Street Pond, 321 Washington Street. We're 3 blocks south of Addison on Washington, right across the street from Platt Electric. Got a ton of great deals right now. You can find us on Facebook. We've got some of that stuff posted up there under Washington Street Pond, or give us a call, 208-735-0012.
Todd Eccles, I'm with Patriot Defense. You can get a hold of me, questions. You can text me, call me, area code 620-794-6223. That's area code 620-794-6223. I'm on Facebook under Patriot Defense. Like the page. I will have more classes coming in January. I was just working on a date this morning. I just got to hear back from one other person, and I can release those dates and when I'm going to have some classes available. But if you're interested in a private class or something like that, get a hold of me, call me, text me at that number, and we can set something up. I've already got one set up. It's not too late for gift certificates as well. So
Todd, not available, by the way, on December 25th. We've got a minute before the break. We'll squeeze in a caller and then get to the callers. We'll get to the caller's point after the break, but caller, go ahead.
Hey, thanks. I really appreciate you guys coming on the air every week. It's awesome. You've probably already talked about this a couple of times, but I see all these ads, talking about what do you do if you do have to shoot somebody, and I'm sure you cover that in some of the classes you have, but it's kind of a teaser to see this online because then you got to spend a bunch of money or do something to actually find out what to do. But I'm kind of curious if you can give us some advice on if I actually pull a gun or if I actually pull a gun and shoot somebody, what do I do to protect my rights besides just not talk to the cops?
Well, we'll talk about that. Hopefully you can stick around, and we'll talk about it on the other side of the break because we have to get to a hard break in just a moment. But these two have a lot of advice there. That's on the way in just a couple of minutes. One other quick note, for those folks who may be looking at some last-minute shopping for family or friends, I want to recommend a gift card from Miracle in Banbury. These make great gifts, and they're on sale now for the holiday season. Even for last-minute presents, you can print them at home, or you can have them mailed to the loved one who's getting them. It's an affordable way to give the gift of relaxation, and you can purchase yours at the website, miraclehotspring.com. That's miraclehotspring.com. More with Forrest Anderson and Todd Eccles coming up in just a couple of minutes on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. I want to thank folks for tuning in this morning on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Todd Eccles from Patriot Defense, Forrest Anderson from Washington Street Pond, and Bill Colley with you this morning. I'm answering the telephones. That number 208-736-0300. Great question from a caller just before the break. If I have to use it, and again, I don't want to do it, but if I have to, then what?
That's a question that it'll bring up a lot of discussion, and there's going to be a lot of varying aspects of it. But we obviously the caller knows, and he suggested we do go cover this extensively in class, stuff like this. What I can suggest to you is it's going to be a personal decision on exactly what you want to do. What I recommend typically is, you've gone through this scenario, the law enforcement shows up, they're starting to question you, go up to them and say, first of all, I was in fear for my life. I did what I did. I'm not feeling well. I need to, I don't want to talk right now. I need to consult my attorney. I want to get my attorney on the phone, and we'll go that route. Because as Forrest said, anything that you say up till then can be turned and twisted and used against you if you're not careful. So my advice would be you want to talk to your attorney first.
You could be completely in the right, but regardless, adrenaline's going to be going. You
Yeah.
might say some things, and then when you think about it 5 minutes later, like, well, no, actually this happened. Well, then they'll say, well, we have conflicting statements, and start to build that case against you. So first thing you just say is, I just went through something traumatic.
Yeah.
I'd like to consult with my attorney, and I need to go see a doctor. So
Mhm.
go get examined by a doctor, talk to your attorney, let things settle down, and then you can give them a concise, prepared statement. Because for the police to do their jobs, they need the correct information.
Well, and
So by you providing that in a well thought out manner, it'll make their job easier.
the interesting thing here is I've had have to have a law enforcement guy teach part of my class, and they will tell you that if a law enforcement officer is ever involved in a shooting, the person will come in, and the part of the law enforcement will come in and they'll investigate. They'll actually take that officer who is involved in that shooting, who had to pull the trigger, and they will send him somewhere, go to a motel, let him chill out for a night, chill out for a day before they actually question him. Why do they do that? So he calms down, so they can get good, solid information from him. That should be the same right extended to us, and we have that right. You just have to state that at the beginning. Just like Forrest said, I want to speak with my attorney first.
We have a caller with us, and caller, you're up next at 924 on Top Story. Go ahead.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate you guys' help and the information you give. It's great. But I've got a question. Have you heard about this new push that they're trying to regulate and outlaw the muzzleloaders?
I haven't heard that yet. Have you, Forrest?
Well, I don't know that they're trying to outlaw them. From what I read, they were just trying to regulate them. Right now, you can buy a muzzleloader without a background check.
Okay.
So, they would add that to. No one's going to go do a mass shooting with a muzzle-loading rifle. If you have a black powder handgun, you could get 6 shots off. If you have 2 of them, you could get 12. But there's a reason why we don't use those type of firearms anymore, because they are notoriously unreliable and dirty and don't have very much power. So, I don't know. It hasn't been on my radar. I think we got bigger fish to fry, but they chip away.
I'd say keep an eye on it, because something like that doesn't seem real big would be perfect for them to attach to something else.
This is the whole idea, though, of carrying a pistol with a large magazine versus maybe a revolver with 6 shots. A muzzleloader, you're not going to have time to get off a whole lot of shots in a crisis.
It should be noted, though, in the state of Idaho, a lot of people think that, I'm a felon, but I can own a muzzleloader. You still cannot own a firearm in any form.
We have another caller with us. Caller, you're up next. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. What's your ideas on how to communicate to people that just because they've been shooting their whole lives, quote unquote, that they do need training? I was one of those that I grew up around guns, shot a lot until I took my first training class. I didn't know anything, realistically. When I got my wife her first gun, the first thing we did was put her in training classes, and she can outshoot anybody or almost anybody that's one of those I've been shooting my whole life type people. I hear at a competition thing down in Rupert here last year. She used someone else's rifle for the shoot and outshot him with his own rifle. And I struggle to help people understand that they need to get training even though they think they know what it is that they're doing.
All they have to do is take a class.
Yep.
You put them in a class once, and they fall apart immediately on the easiest part of the class, when you're just like, give me 10 shots in the bullseye in this target. And they're all over the place. And then maybe if they're somewhat proficient with the wrong grip and the wrong trigger pull, they can put them in there at a slow pace. But once you put a reasonable pace behind it, everything goes south. So a lot of people, handgun discipline is completely different than rifle discipline. A lot of people have been shooting rifles, shotguns their whole life, but have never really shot a handgun. And once you get them on paper, you can see that the
Yeah.
bullet's not hitting where it's intended.
Some people, they know that they don't think they need a class, but yeah, you watch them go out and shoot, and they're shooting from these insanely long distances with a handgun. They can't hit the paper, and you get them closer, and they still can't hit the paper. Some people are just really stubborn and may not ever take a class, but you've got to get them into a class. Sometimes when I have people in class and they're doing something totally, not good, they're flinching real bad, let's say, but they won't listen to me because they've been shooting their whole lives. They're just here because they want the signature, they want the permit. That's all it is. I have to show them. I have to make them decide on their own that what they're doing is wrong. You have to kind of come up with some roundabout ways to get there. A lot of times I'll take their handgun. I'll tell them I'm loading it with 2 rounds. hand them their handgun back. Let them take shots. And when they go like that and pull the trigger, nothing's there, and they drop that gun 3 inches, they go, I was flinching. I was like, yeah, I told you that 4 shots ago. But you have to just you just got to work with people. Some people are never going to take a class, but Forrest gave the best answer. If you get them into a class, they'll find out really soon what they don't know.
And it takes me a little while sometimes to settle down, because when I first start, I'm a little high into the right of a target, and then I have to make an adjustment. And so a lot of people, that's where the idea of practice keeps coming back, that muscle memory.
And sometimes just feeding them information, feeding them articles of people. Maybe if you're talking like a self-defense, they need to have a handgun. They need to be better at it for self-defense because they're going to carry. Feeding them different articles and almost let them come to that realization on their own. But you've got to give them the information and then talk to them about it. And eventually, over time, they'll probably change their mind.
My dad used to tell me, never compare yourself to crap. So when you take a person that's a mediocre shooter and you put them in a class with people that have been trained or people that are getting trained that are applying the principles of that trainer, their weaknesses will show through. And an intelligent person that really wants to become better won't get offended by that, won't be hurt by that. They will actually grasp onto those principles and move forward.
We have to take a short break. We've got a half hour coming up, another half hour of the program, just a couple of minutes, and more of your telephone calls as well. On Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Our guests in the studio, Todd Eccles from Patriot Defense and Forrest Anderson from Washington Street Pawn. And I was just commenting to the two of them. Charlie Howell sent me a video of guys actually playing Christmas carols out on the firing range. It was quite entertaining. And you mentioned, Forrest, that you have a thank you for Charlie as well.
Yeah, Charlie, last week we were talking about that range, which let's not get started talking about that over in Jerome. Just pick up your trash when you're done shooting. That's the point. But he said, hey, I'll bring a map of those to the shop so people can see kind of how the lands are divided on the other side of the canyon. And you know what? He showed up later that afternoon. That is my kind of man. He said, you had said, talk about politicians. I'm not a politician. I said, well, you just proved your point because you did what you said you were going to do. And I said, that proves you're not a politician.
Yeah, one of my coworkers went to high school with him and says he's not a politician. He's just a regular, normal human being. That's not to say that some politicians aren't. But yeah, he let me put it this way. He's not going around, taking pictures of babies and doing all of the, well, you elect me, I promise, with holding his fingers crossed behind his back. He's a pretty good guy. We have a caller with us. It's 9:35. Caller, you're up next, and you're on KLIX.
Hi, yeah. I got the tail end of something you said about firearms and felons. And let me just make a question here, and you might have dealt with part of this already, but probably maybe not the whole thing. In Idaho, once you've completed your sentence for a felony, all your rights are restored, including firearm rights, except if you committed certain violent crimes or drug crimes or sex crimes. Is that your belief?
I don't know what the law is. As far as it asked directly on that questionnaire, have you ever been convicted of domestic violence? Have you ever been convicted of a felony?
And this is a federal form, right?
Yes. And if you answer yes to those, then it's an immediate disqualification. Now,
okay, so I'm assuming that in Idaho, you can own a firearm, say, if you buy it from a private person, but you would not be able to buy one from a federally licensed firearms dealer.
Absolutely not. If you are a felon in possession of a firearm, you will go to jail. Now,
I'm talking about in Idaho, your firearm rights are restored after you've completed your sentence. No more parole, no more probation. You're out of prison. It's stated specifically in a statute.
You need to
And-
go back to court and actually have them reinstated.
No, the statute says specifically, as soon as you've completed your sentence, your all rights are restored, and then they say, except firearm rights are not restored for people who have violent crimes, drug crimes, domestic violence, sex crimes. It lists the crimes or not. It's automatic. Automatic.
I have people denied every day who have a felony that as 18 years old. And you have to realize that firearms are not state regulated. They are federally regulated. So if you get caught by an Idaho State Police or a Twin Falls County Sheriff and you are a felon, and it doesn't matter how the state looks at it, if you're committing a federal crime, they will take you to jail. And a felon in possession of a firearm, unless your rights have been reinstated by the court, you will go to jail. And it's as simple as going to the courthouse and saying, hey, when I was 18 years old, I made a mistake. I got a felony. I lost my gun rights. How do I get those reinstated? You pay your attorney, you jump through a few hoops, and people have it done all the time. And I think that's as it should be. People make mistakes. They do dumb things, but it doesn't mean that they should lose their rights forever. If they've go through the proper channels, but to say, hey, I'm off probation, now I'm going to go grab a gun, don't do that. You'll go back to jail. Let your attorney handle, let the court system take care of that.
I want to thank the caller for chiming in, because I think that there's, despite what a state statute might say, you still should be going back to the court saying, hey, I want this cleared. You know, just assuming that you're okay could get you in a lot of trouble.
Exactly. That's exactly my point. To say that, oh, I read this statute. If you've ever sat in a courtroom, there's tons of home lawyers in there that just get chewed up by the system. Like, well, I read a law somewhere, or I read this, or I read that, and it says I can do this. And then the judge will just chew them apart because they don't know the law. So go to the courthouse, find out what your status is. Say, do I have my rights restored? If they say no, say, okay, what process do I need to take to get my rights restored?
I get this question a lot. They call me up and they ask me about, can I purchase a gun? Can I take a class? Can I get the permit? And I always tell them, hey, I'm not an attorney. Okay, I don't know the law. I can help you. I can tell you what I think the law is, what I assume the law is. But I always tell him to call, and he's probably going to get mad at me if I say this. I always tell him to call down to if you're in Twin Falls County, call Twin Falls DMV. Asked to speak to Sergeant Doug Sugden. He's the only one in the county that he is the guy that you go to see when you apply for your concealed carry permit. And he will let you know exactly if you're going to waste your time or exactly what you need to do to be able to get your permit.
He has those statutes memorized.
Yeah.
We have a short break. We've got more coming up with Todd Eccles and Forrest Anderson. It's 23 right now. We'll review their contact information again in a few minutes as well. Bill Cowley with you as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310. KLIX and newsradio1310.com. We've got a few minutes left on our program today, and we do want to mention we're talking about firearms and the Second Amendment, firearm safety. 9:43, it is 22. We've got Todd Eccles from Patriot Defense in studio with us, along with Forrest Anderson from Washington Street Pawn. Bill Cowley as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX. Telephone number to reach our program, 208-736-0300. We should note that both of these guys have great gift ideas for you. We'll start with Forrest. A lot of people coming into the shop realize, I think for the first time, you sell a lot more than just firearms.
Oh yeah, we've got like Xbox Ones right now for $150. We got Xbox One games and Xbox games. All our Xbox and PlayStation 3 games are 360 games, and PlayStation 3 games are $5 a piece. We have a counter full of them. We've got ammunition, we've got guns, we've got tools. I've got a ton of great construction tools right now. So yeah, come in. We'd love to gear you up.
Yeah, you can get a hold of me. My name's Todd. I'm Patriot Defense. Area code.
Like you have to introduce yourself.
I know. It is what it is. My fans want to know. You can call me or text me. Area code 620-794-6223. That's area code 620-794-6223. Gift certificates are good right now. We can get a gift. I can make up a gift certificate for an enhanced permit class. I can make up a gift certificate for just a beginner shooting class. Anything you want, I can make a certificate on, and we can figure out how to get them to you. We can make some arrangements. I can drop them off over with Forrest over at Washington Street Pawn. You can pick them up there. You can look at his $200 gun wall while you're in there, and pick something out. So, Jess, you got any questions? Let me know.
And we have a caller with us. Caller, you're up next. You're on the air on KLIX.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for taking my call this morning. I kind of wanted to touch on 2 points. Number one, first of all, big fan of Forrest. Go to his shop all the time. Great place to go. Number two, in regards to the last caller, I actually had a friend of mine, kind of what we were talking about earlier, made some mistakes when he was younger, had his gun rights revoked, but in this last year, he got done with everything he needed to do, and it was a little bit of a grueling process, but he was able to get his gun rights reinstated. So letting, kind of along with that, what that other guy was saying, it is possible. It does take a little bit of time, but it's not very difficult.
Yeah, it's just a matter of once you've done your thing with the state, go to the court, ask them, what do I need to do? Don't just assume because you've paid off your stuff or your fines that now you can own a gun. Once the state clears you, then you will be able to pass a federal background check. So you'll be completely restored.
Exactly, and that's what he did. And like you said, I think it took from the start of the process till the end of it, it took him about a year, but it did get passed through, and it did get that, and he's legal to buy firearms now. So,
Thank you,
and then
Cole.
the other point that I wanted to make was in regards to the gentleman that you were reading the article about. I had a situation at my house out in Jerome about 3 years ago where I was dealing with an individual who was on methamphetamines, and he was trying to break into my house, and he was trying to break into my truck and whatnot. And I've grown up around guns, always been around guns, taken firearms training and all of that, but nothing will prepare you that I've dealt with to deal with that situation. And I just want to encourage, like you guys have been, that the firearms training, just the muscle memory and doing that sort of stuff is no matter what it costs, is worth it. Because when you get yourself in that situation to where you don't know what's going to happen or what's going to go down, whether you're going to have to shoot or not shoot or how it's all going to unravel, that muscle memory and that knowledge that you know how to handle yourself and operate your firearm correctly is just, it's worth every penny.
I thank you for that, caller. That was wonderful. That's a wonderful example. He was in an experience. He had a situation where stuff was coming at him at 100 miles an hour. He's probably thinking, I don't know if he had family in the house, but is my family okay? What's this? Who's going to call the police? What am I going to do? Is this guy going to be on the other side of my truck? I mean, I don't know the situation, but he was having to worry about all that. But he had at least developed the muscle memory. He knew where his firearm was. He was able to draw it. He could use it if he had to. Listening to him talk made me think of the situation I've talked about on the show. I think it was a while back, about when I actually had to draw my firearm, and I had a lot of things going on at one time. Get my daughter in the vehicle, get my hand on my firearm, get it drawn. That was almost just instinctual. I just went for the firearm. I was drawing it. I wasn't even thinking about it. I was worried about getting my daughter in and keeping us all safe. So all this stuff comes at you at once. It's really good to have that muscle memory there to back you up if you need it.
I've had to do that 3 or 4 times at the shop, and I'm just grateful that it's funny, you stand there and you're firm, you're solid as rock because you've done it. And then when the situation's over, your adrenaline's kind of like coming down.
Yeah.
It's a completely different feeling.
Barney Fife may have been comedy, but that's how a lot of us
Yep.
would feel in that situation.
Yep.
We have a caller with us. Caller, you're up next, and you're on Top Story.
Good morning, Bill. Excellent show as always, and the two gentlemen there with you. I can't help but think that, damn, I spend my time shooting just little 4-legged terrorists, those damn rock trucks. But in Idaho, listening to some of the stories, it really behooves you as a law-abiding citizen to know exactly what it is you are bound to by law. I mean, just because someone is going around and looking to break into your truck or your shed, does that automatically give you a reason to have a dismaker?
You can go confront that person. I mean, you can take your gun with you. You can have it in its holster or in a secure location, and you can go confront that person and say, "Hey, get out of my shed or get out of my car." That you have your right to protect your property. However, you don't have the right to use deadly force to
Mhm.
protect your property. Now, if that situation turned, so that person jumped out of your truck and they had a gun and they pointed at you, or they had a knife and they charged you, at that point, it's going from a property crime
Self-defense.
to self-defense.
I'll point out.
So don't think that you have to just stand there and watch someone break into your truck. You can go confront them, but you want to stay a good distance away. People can cover 15 feet in a hurry.
Yep.
So you can confront them, call the police first thing,
I'll,
get them coming.
And I'll add to that my own personal experience. 1980, summer of 1980, I was 17 years old, and just walking out on the porch in the middle of the night with a long gun was all I needed to do. And these fellows just took off and went the other way.
I'll add to both those thoughts. I agree. I agree with Bill. I agree with Forrest 100%. But it's something you have to think about too. Let's flip the coin a little bit. If someone's breaking into my truck or breaking into my shed, and I leave my house to go confront them and run them off, or say, "Hey, get out of here," or whatever, I've got a wife and kids in the house as well. I've left them behind. So, are they safe? Is it really worth it? Is my stuff really worth it, or am I better off arming myself from the house, calling the police, saying, "Hey, this is what's going on. You need to come over here. You need to take care of him," and me staying with my family with my firearm in case it escalates from there? Or should I go confront it? You can look at two different things, and it's something we have to make a personal choice on.
And realize even if the shoot is 100% justified, you had 50 witnesses that witnessed, you do it right, you're still going to spend a ton on attorney fees.
Yep.
We have another caller. Caller, you're up next. You're on the air on Top Story on KLIX.
Hey, good morning, Bill. I love your show. Real quick question. I got my law enforcement training in California about 13 years ago through the police academy, and shortly after I was in a real bad motorcycle accident, so I didn't get to fulfill my dreams. However, moved up here, and in Gooding County, I got my concealed weapons permit with certifications that I got through the police academy. However, am I able to use those same certifications to do the enhanced concealed and get my permit, or do I need to re-enroll in a new class again and do all that, or my certificate's still valid for an enhanced permit? I'll let you go, buddy. Thank you.
Yep. Good question. I would say off the top of my head that you're probably going to have to retake the class again. You're going to have to retake the class because it's a new class. It talks about Idaho lethal force laws, and then you have to fire 98 rounds. If you wanted to double check with me, and you're in Twin Falls County, get a hold of Sergeant Doug Sugden over at the Twin Falls DMV, and he'll be the one that has to make that call.
Doug's going to hate you.
Doug's going to hate me, but I think he'd rather we do stuff right.
Hey, speaking quickly, too, about people in law enforcement, and he mentioned his training. We just want to note tomorrow, starting at 9 o'clock in the morning until 4 in the afternoon at the Twin Falls Walmart, Twin Falls Police Department and Fire Department are going to be ringing the bells for Salvation Army.
I've got a kind of a special that I just cooked up. I am so appreciative. Man, I can't even say that word. I'm so appreciative of our local community and the people in it. We've had a lot of traffic, and I've been working on a deal to actually do some different things with my store, and it looks like it's coming through, and I'm excited. So to kind of celebrate that with the holidays, I'd like to give away a handgun. And what I want you to do is if you bring me a receipt from a local business, another locally owned business, I will give you a ticket for that. If you make a purchase from me, every $10 you spend with me, I'll give you a ticket towards that. And then we'll draw that on New Year's. And I want somebody to start the new year out with a new firearm. And, so support local business. Shop there, bring me the receipt. If you've shopped with me this month, bring your receipt back this month, and I'll give you a ticket for every $10 that you spent.
We have another caller with us. A busy day on the telephone lines today. Caller, you're up next, and you're on the air on Top Story.
Hi, I was wondering, I'm getting a little older now, and some of these young guys that be stealing from you and stuff, to cut to the chase, at what point does the physical, if they're a big guy and they're coming at you and you're armed, at what point do you fear for yourself enough to have to use deadly force without them having a weapon?
That's for the courts to kind of decide, unfortunately.
Yeah, I can't give you an exact on that, but if you ever have to use we'll just say this, if you ever have to use your firearm to protect yourself, and let's say it's at your house, it's at night, or wherever, you use that firearm to protect yourself, you have to be able to explain to law enforcement why you were in fear for your life. So if they're legitimately, let's say, bigger than you, and maybe you have your weapon and you're a little older, I don't know, younger guy, older guy, just depends, and they're coming at you and you're afraid for your life, you just got to be able to explain why you did what you did. But I don't think I would leave it to chance. If you think you need to use your firearm, then that's about the only route you think you can go. Use it, but the courts are going to have to decide.
And I would say there's some contributing factors. A, if somebody's breaking into your car, you go outside and confront them, and it turns into a shooting situation. That is a different situation than you're getting in your car, someone grabs you from behind.
Because you just put yourself into that situation.
Yeah. So if it's the biggest thing I always tell people is, if it's a situation you could have avoided, you weren't defending your life or the life of another person, then get out of it. If you can get your car and drive away and call the police, do that.
These are all decisions and things that you need to. I mean, you're not going to be able to cover every scenario, but these are scenarios that you, as someone who carries a handgun for protection, needs to think about ahead of time. You need to kind of play some of these scenarios out in your head ahead of time so you can figure out what you're going to do, so you're not trying to figure it out last minute.
We have one more caller we'll squeeze in. We're down to about 2.5 minutes. Caller, you're up next. You're on the air.
Yes, sir. This may be a myth, but I've always heard, and I've even repeated this advice. If you brandish your weapon, it is for deadly intent. You don't shoot to injure, you shoot to kill. It's in a mass. And I've been told that you don't want to injure somebody. You definitely want to end them. If nothing else, to prevent future litigation or legal problems. Is that true or not?
First of all, you never shoot to kill. You shoot to stop the threat. And if you shoot to stop the threat, and I'm going to be blunt here, and they aren't dead, but the threat is stopped, and they're laying on the ground, and they're not going to harm you or harm anyone else, then the threat is stopped. If that means you've shot them 4 times and they die and they're laying on the ground, the threat is stopped. You shoot to stop the threat. You never shoot to kill. Shoot to stop the threat.
Yeah, and be prepared for that, and don't go looking for trouble. If trouble comes to you, defend yourself and do what you have to do to defend yourself. And don't continue to shoot. If the threat's down and the threat's out of it, then you stop shooting. It's like the joke about the old lady. The police came to her and the assailant was dead on the ground, and they said, why'd you shoot him 12 times? And she said, well, that's all the bullets I had.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that. You just want to shoot until the threat is eliminated.
And we always need to understand too, don't go looking for trouble. A firearm should always be the tool of last resort. If you can avoid a situation, avoid it. If someone's breaking into your car and you don't have to go out there, I wouldn't go out there. I'd call the police, let them handle it.
Right, a bullet in somebody's back is not going to help your case.
It depends. We can go down that road if you want, but if they're running away, don't shoot someone in the back. But if you are in a self-defense situation, maybe they're beating on your wife, someone else, or if that is the only available target for you that you have is their back to stop the threat, that's what you do. But if they're running away, guess what? They're no longer a threat.
And then the other side of that is from the other person. So if someone is in a bad place in their life or whatever, and they're stealing your car stereo, a human life is not worth any amount of property, no matter what kind of situation they've put themselves in. We have to remember it is a human life. It's someone's daughter, it's someone's son. If they're coming at you, you need to defend yourself. You're someone's daughter, you're someone's son. You need to defend yourself. But, don't go looking for trouble.
We've got to wrap it up for today, which is a shame because every phone line is flashing at us. So
nice.
Save those calls. I do want to point out, I want to thank Todd and Forrest and wish them a Merry Christmas. I will be away next week. God willing, the creek don't rise. I'll be back on Tuesday, December 26th. See you right here on Top Story before the end of the year, at least. And guys, we'll talk soon.
Awesome.
Have a good Christmas.